would normally start the stream at 11 o'clock. I don't know how to describe it any other way than 11 o'clock isn't really working. So I might pull it back to 10. I just don't know anymore. I don't know about the time frame. So that said, I'm just going to get into today's news, and I'm not going to go through the rundown about what ohmTown is. I do that every episode, and pretty much every episode, and you can look at it in the show notes. Basically, ohmTown is a news aggregation site. It's been running for years and years and years, but only used by me. And then in January, I opened it up, and now lots of people use it for news, but it's not much in terms of getting people posting comments and stuff like that. So if you are interested in that kind of thing, it's head on over to ohmTown.com. I'm also here on Twitch. That's what this is now that I'm streaming live at 11 o'clock. I'm starting a little early just because, but I also have the podcast. That's over on Apple Podcasts and Google Play Podcasts. I'm over on YouTube as well. Oh, and Spotify. So wherever you are, I'm probably there too. I even have a TikTok account, but I'm not doing anything on it yet. And I'm on Twitter as well, but I didn't even announce this episode today. This stream, I didn't even bother. Not sure why. It's been kind of an odd day again today, and I'm still working on the site, but I'm just going to get into the news. The very first, and if you are in my chat and you want to chat about something, feel free to throw a question or a comment into the chat, and we'll talk about the news or whatever else you want to talk about. That said, the very first article is over in the Word in Tech, and it's Apple Store workers at Grand Central Terminal start collecting signatures to form a union. Hot on the heels of the Amazon unionization, Apple Store workers are going to collect signatures, and if they can form a union, they'll run a vote, form a union, off you go. How that will play out in terms of better work-life balance, better benefits as an employee, who knows? But I am surprised that it's taken this long when you hear about CEOs making $400 million in a year based on the performance of all of these workers. You'd think maybe people would be making more money, but that isn't necessarily the case. I wouldn't even say that is not necessarily the case. It's just not the case. Minimum wage is $15 in some places, less depending on the field you're in. If you're a food service, you can get paid less than minimum wage because you get tips. Inflation is ruining tips. Unless you run across compassionate people, then you tip really well, knowing that there's inflation. If you can bear that burden extra because of inflation costing everything anywhere, I mean, it's just it's pretty dramatic. So let's click this link. I'll take you over to The Verge. The Verge is a great source for news, tech-related news. And that's why this got aggregated into ohmTown, because it's somewhere in tech relation to the category, right? So the word in tech and the topic, the article kind of gets funneled into these 6 categories. I said I wasn't going to go through all of that kind of stuff, so I'm trying to avoid it. But at any rate, this article was written by Emma Roth, and it has a little picture of the Grand Central Terminal Apple Store entrance. It's a pretty neat place. Most Apple stores tend to have an interesting aesthetic if you've ever been there. And lots of people are working. Although I went to a cookie store today, and this cookie store was jam-packed with people. It was really interesting to see this. They had to have had 15 plus employees working, but people were just running in, getting cookies and running out. And you could easily spend about, I think it was something like $24 on 6 cookies. Yeah, pretty pricey things. Anyway, it says here the organizers, who reportedly go by Fruit Stand Workers United, announced in an update on its website that they voted to affiliate themselves with the Workers United Labor Union on February 21st, 2022, and Workers United is the same group backing the recent unionization efforts over at Starbucks. And this is in relation also to the fact that Amazon unionization is kicking off, and if you would have to be completely blind to not see or read the room, be able to read the room, that employees are getting kind of burnt out on not having a positive work-life balance. They're not getting paid enough. The benefits aren't good enough. And what is offered is being outstripped by other socioeconomic machinations, where if you end up having to have an emergency department visit, depending on where you are, or an ambulance has to come and pick you up, you basically are done for economically. This is even with insurance, it's expensive, depending on the scope of your insurance. So yeah, when you hear reports of people having to pee in bottles at Amazon because their breaks are only like 5 minutes, or you have a manager that tells you can't go, then this is what happens. So best of luck to all of you who are taking this dive. But not everybody, not every sector, not everyone should be forming a union. It really depends on the sector. So we'll see what happens. This, I think, is going to be an ongoing trend, however. But let's go on to the next article. The next article is also in the Word in Tech, and this is forget Twitter. Elon Musk has his hands full keeping Tesla on the road. I had mentioned this yesterday. A lot of people hero worship the billionaires and the multimillionaires without consideration to the context about how people get there. I really won't go into it again here, but it says, spare a brief thought for Elon Musk's bankers and lawyers. 1 week he is posting earnest polls about freedom of speech on Twitter, and the next he's spending billions of dollars on a major stake in a social media site before attempting an all-cash take private deal complete with by now compulsory stoner me. And possibly, let's be honest, probably sticking 2 fingers up to the US regulators at the same time, just another fortnight in the life of the world's richest man. So that was all a quote from the author of this article over at The Guardian. That's Jasper Jolly. At one time, Tesla was almost bankrupt. I should say Elon Musk was almost bankrupt in terms of his endeavors, but a NASA contract kind of saved everything. In the history about Tesla and him being credited with PayPal and Tesla and other companies, there's so much more context there that people need to actually pay attention to the reality of how someone becomes ultra rich, and in the greater context of sociology and social systems, you have to understand that when you are struggling to figure out where your next meal comes from or where your next paycheck is going to come from, you are in fight or flight mode, you are in survival mode. And when you don't have to worry about that stuff ever, you can do great things. But when you're worried about where your house is and where your meals are and your safety, you have different priorities. Meanwhile, there are people that are out there that are saying, well, just pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. And that's just, again, sociopathic. So it says here, the whole rigmarole of is a soap opera, according to Daniel Ives, analyst at U.S. investment bank Wedbush Securities. He highlighted a host of questions around financing, regulatory, and balancing Musk's time. The last of these is perhaps the most pressing for Tesla's investors. For Musk, Tesla is only one part of the world's ultimate portfolio career. He also runs companies exploring brain-controlled computing, the colonization of Mars, and car tunnels that will try to simultaneously defy Los Angeles congestion and the principle of induced demand, that building more roads causes more traffic. And to a degree, I'd say that's probably true. When it comes to creating shareholder value, Musk is right up there, although Apple's Tim Cook and Amazon's Jeff Bezos are still ahead. He stewarded Tesla through manufacturing hell and near bankruptcy to reach a $1 trillion market value. Yeah. Yet, that statement kind of belies the history of it. I all I know at this point is Twitter is still looking kind of rough around the edges in terms of it actually being acquired. There's a lot of activity taking place, like this poison pill kind of diluting the stock and kind of ruining the purchase for Elon Musk. If that happens, I don't know if anybody will be so motivated to assist in the funding of the acquisition of Twitter, but I said it the last couple of episodes, might as well just spin up another Twitter. It seems like it's pretty ripe for dilution in terms of customers. Maybe a federated Twitter like Mastodon. I really doubt that would happen. It's complex. It's just a little too busy. But I don't see people being harmed by the way that Twitter exists now. But different people have different vision. So maybe Elon Musk's vision and throwing a ton of money at it and opening it up and whatever else is going on, so supposedly there's subscription discussions. You can subscribe to somebody or you can pay and remove the ads, that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. But before I stay on that too long, I want to get all of the news out there to you. Things that I thought were interesting based on their headline and the little snippet. This next article is, Am I Done Suffering for Fashion? This is in the Mobile channel. 2 years of a pandemic have lowered our patience for uncomfortable clothing. So I thought this was really interesting because I suffer from this pretty much all the time. I used to work 100-hour work weeks. I used to wear a business suit or business casual, a little bit deeper than a business casual. It was I was always going to meetings and meeting people in different sectors, and so you had to be professional. Now though, that doesn't work for me. Not in my current career, not for my business when I'm not doing my other career, and not while I'm streaming. So for crying out loud, I'm wearing a shirt that has a bunch of text on it. You can't see it because it's blocked by the camera. It goes, anyway, never mind. At any rate, so this article is over at the New York Times, and I think that we are all burnt out on wearing prior to the pandemic. But now, doesn't it seem ripe for no longer having to wear suits and ties and dressing like this or that or whatever? when we can still get stuff done on a camera and a computer. And many people have to go out and do work somewhere, and they have to dress the part, right? So if you're farming, you don't want to wear a business suit. If you are an electrician, you want to wear certain things that are effective for being an electrician. If you're a welder, then you're going to be donning your mask and all of that. That is appropriate dress. But nowadays, I think dress is nothing more than impression. You're trying to make somebody think that you are a certain way, and really it should be about your skills and your abilities and your knowledge. And if you show up wearing, I had this discussion with a couple of attorneys, does the suit really matter? And I said, I don't care if my attorney shows up in a Hawaiian shirt and board shorts. If they're effective and reasonably priced and they win in my favor, perfect. That's what I'm looking for. But then again, you have to go and look at my cousin Vinny. Maybe it's not going to be acceptable to show up like that. Well, at any rate, this article here is, am I done suffering for fashion? I think it should be reframed as, are you done suffering for work? This article is over at the New York Times, written by Rhonda Garelick. Go over, check it out. You can follow the link that's in the chat or in the show notes. And we'll keep on moving forward. I'll get this done by 11 o'clock tonight. Not 11 o'clock, midnight tonight. We started just before 11. So my dial is turned a little bit. Okay, so the next article is over in Smack Talk, which is about Mac. Apple, I should say. Grovemade wood and leather wrist rest review. A comfortable and elegant addition to your desk. So I clicked on this because I thought that this was interesting. I don't know many people who use a wrist rest. And when they do, they're using it on a keyboard that isn't conducive to saving your wrist anyway. So here this article says the Grovemade wrist rest, which is very hard to say, by the way, if you try and say it really fast. Has been updated to perfectly match Apple's latest Magic Keyboard with Touch ID. Available in multiple wood finishes. They will easily class up your desk setup. Don't know about that. If you haven't seen any of Grovemade's gear before, the company focuses on natural materials and old world craftsmanship. So let's go over and look at this. This is over at appleinsider.com, written by Andrew O'Hara. And so what I wanted to draw attention to wasn't necessarily the wrist rest. I mean, it looks like it's a laminated piece of material that has a slight arc to it so that you can rest your wrist on it. But all of these oh, by the way, the Mac that this person has in the photograph is the Mac Studio. And so it's somewhere around $4,000 on up to $8,000, maybe more. I'm not sure what the upper limit is on it anymore, but so this isn't a cheap date of a picture here. Well, anyway, the fact that we are still using linear flat keys and keyboards just defies everything that we have ever talked about in the entire history of ergonomics. And to this day, you have to buy a special input device. You can't just buy a keyboard that's automatically split in half. And so this straight fixed keyboard that breaks your wrist 90 degrees, right? This is 45 and this is 45. You are basically breaking your wrist to make a right angle so that you can type on a straight keyboard. It's horrible for your wrists, but it's a cheap solution, right? Because all they have to do is make these straight slabs and there's no fiddly things involved. But what we all should be asking for are split keyboards. Split keyboards keep our wrist straight so that it isn't ruining the tendon, it isn't crimping the tendons and the blood flow. It isn't causing any bones to, for lack of a better term, be forced out of place. If you've ever felt needles in your hands or in your forearms or in your wrist pain, count yourself lucky, because repetitive strain injury, carpal tunnel syndrome, all of this is caused by breaking your wrist like that so that you can type on a straight keyboard. So I recommend people getting a relatively inexpensive Mistel split keyboard, MISTEL. Those are the ones that I use. Obviously, they're not always the things that you want. It's not made of aluminum. It's not a single slab. You have a little cable that you have to connect the two pieces to, but the benefit to you as a human being is so much better. And me, for streaming, I can put my low profile microphone arm right over the split of the keyboard, and it doesn't impact me in any way, shape, or form. So maybe you'll like it too. Give it a shot. But in the meantime, if you're not going to do that, then you can use this wrist rest to raise your wrist up so that at least one thing is helping you, which is, instead of your wrist being like this as you're typing, it changes it so it's like that. And so that is another of the angles that gets reduced when you use a wrist rest. That's the one ergonomic thing in this entire picture. Obviously, if you're in the podcast, you're not going to see it. Well, anyway, you can go and check out this wrist rest. I would recommend it above not using anything. I don't need to use a wrist rest because the angle of my keyboard, it's split, so my wrists are okay, and it's tented so that it's rotated a little bit so that my wrists are never broken 90 degrees and they're never flat. So, or I should say, they're never raised up like that. So it's hard to describe that. I have to show it, which is kind of wonky on a podcast. But there you have it. But links to this are in the show notes if you're listening to this on the podcast. Nice photography. Seems like it's a nice piece of kit on a desk. Let's see how much it is. There's a lot of pictures in this article, so I encourage you to go over and check out the article itself. So it looks like it'll cost about well, actually, no, hold on. I'm trying to find where it says how much it costs, but it says you can pick up the Grovemade wrist rest for Apple's Magic Keyboard, Magic Trackpad, Magic Keyboard with numeric keypad, starting at $50. Okay. So there you have it. Let's continue on. The next article is Drones 101, the future of drones for consumers, businesses, and the military. In Drones 101 report, Business Insider Intelligence, Business Insider's premium research service forecasts the future of the drone market and examines how high it'll fly. So this is part of the Business Insider Intelligence service. So when we click this link, you'll see what it looks like, but I won't be able to go into it. They basically have this little tidbit of information. You have to become a member of this service. And it says, drones represent a massive opportunity for consumers and businesses as we expect the global market to reach $63.6 billion by 2025. And I'll throw that into the chat, but it's really something that you have to subscribe to. I may stop bringing those type of articles into the aggregator, but that's okay. We'll continue on here. It says the next article is in the Mobile channel. Hubble telescope zooms in on the biggest comet ever spotted. The Space Observatory helped scientists make more precise measurement of the comet, which has a mass of 500 trillion tons and an appearance like burnt toast. So let's click a link here. This is a New York Times article. It's written by Robin George Andrews. And let's see. Oh, so it has 3 pictures at the top of the article. One, it says observation, which I guess is the original, but then it has 2 additional pictures. One of the coma, which is the stuff that's being sprayed off of it, and then the nucleus, which is the core of which is basically the comet itself. So they estimated its icy core to be between 62 and 125 miles long, based on its brightness. If the estimates were accurate, it would be the largest comet ever discovered. So I wonder how far away it is. It's now less than 2 billion miles from the sun, and in a few million years will return to its nesting ground in the Oort cloud. Yeah, I think this is one of those things where I would love to have us send a probe out, like in Star Trek, and check this thing out and land on it and take a core sample and fly back. We've done that with one other thing, but we haven't heard much about it. It's been a while, been a long time actually. If I can remember to go back and look into it, then I'll go back and find that other comet that we landed something on. Despite its heft, measuring the size of this comet's nucleus proved difficult. Although far from the sun, just a trickle of sunlight is sufficient to vaporize the nucleus's volatile carbon monoxide ices, creating an obfuscating, dusty atmosphere known as a coma. I think they all have comas, if they're icy in any way. Let's see what else here. Yeah, we'll just continue on. I've got a lot of articles that I'm going to include in today's show notes, so let's just tease you with the news and see if y'all go and read them. That would be great. I'd love to get some people chatting in my chat. Yeah, I'm pondering a lot about this right now. So this is the Daily News Show, and this article is in that channel, and it's called "Can Men Wear Leggings Too?" I'm gonna say no. A cyclist wonders whether his stretchy sporting gear could have a place in his everyday wardrobe. Pardon me one second. I'm just gonna say no. I don't know. We'll click the link. I think everybody's just gonna look at somebody wearing leggings and say, "What are you, Robin Hood?" And kind of give everybody a lot of flack for doing it. This article is written by Vanessa Friedman, and it has somebody doing the model walk in leggings and a sport coat of some kind, some design. I can't really describe it. Let's see here. It says leggings at the Gucci Love Parade show in Los Angeles in 2021. So this article is about should men wear leggings, and it reaches back into the history of men wearing leggings. It says men first adopted tights or tights-like garments back in the 15th century, long before women. Henry VIII of England was oft depicted in his stockings, as was Louis XVI of France. It wasn't until the 1800s that they fell out of favor, replaced by tailored trousers. But they've been working their way back for a while now. So I guess everything old is new again. That's kind of the standard fare. So let's continue on. Like I said, I've got a lot of articles. The next article is in Warcrafters. It says here, Paraspora expands ocean terraforming with Blue Mars expansion. So Terraforming Management Simulator Paraspora has a new expansion on the way, arriving May 2nd, 2022, that will deepen the game around the all-important source of life, water. What just happened? 1 second. There we go. We're going to click the link. It takes us over to PC Gamer. The article is written by Jonathan Bolding. This might be an interesting game to bring over to Twitch. And let's scroll down a little bit. New buildings will allow transport over your newly made Martian oceans, as well as exploitation of underwater resources, and perhaps most importantly, fisheries to harvest the life you've seeded in those oceans. They've got a great setup over at PC Gamer where they always include pictures or an audio recording of the article itself and any trailers or other information that might be hosted over on YouTube. So if you are interested in terraforming simulation games, definitely check out Paraspora. And if you want to know more about it, then go over to pcgamer.com. The next article is over in Smack Talk. WeMax Dice Projector Review. I know nothing about this. It says here WeMax Dice is a conveniently small and reasonably light projector that can be used to present from a Mac, but it's most used like a TV, like the WeMax Nova projector before it. WeMax Dice is built around an Android, and yeah, that anything that's external to Apple is going to cause, I guess, system issues. How to integrate it into the Apple ecosystem. So I'm going to click this link so that we can take a look at it. It's over at appleinsider.com, written by William Gallagher, and it has kind of the Apple design aesthetic with either a leather or a plastic handle that looks like leather, and an all black aesthetic, but it's a projector. And let's see if we can grab some stats here. So it's a roughly a 6 by 5 by 6. I'm rounding some of that up and down. Let's see, 2 to 3 hours of battery life, 700 ANSI lumens, so you'll need a dark place. And it'll throw an image up to around 10.5 feet, but the author of this article says that they went almost double that. And if that's the picture that's coming out of it, then I'm a little worried about it. I'm not sure what they were projecting it on, but comes with an HDMI port. Connect either a MacBook Pro or Apple TV to that, and you can choose Dice's sources. Okay, so interesting. The picture that they show on their site doesn't make it look like it's an amazing piece of kit. So yeah, I don't know about this. You certainly can go and find out more about it, but at $700, that picture that I saw there, maybe it's because it's being projected onto a wall that didn't really reflect well, but wow, it did not sell me on it. Anyway, let's continue on. The next article is over in the continuity report. So from their box office category at variety.com, Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore, Conjuring franchise low opening weekend. Yeah, I've heard about this not being an amazing showing, so to speak, while the domestic box office is showing signs of life after an age of COVID lockdowns, it seems that not every film franchise is being buoyed by a return of theater goers, Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, Warner Brothers' latest entry into the prequel of Harry Potter, is off to a somewhat lackluster start, I suppose it's going to say. This article's over at Variety, written by J. Kim Murphy. I will be watching it. I'll probably end up buying this, like other movies in the franchise, just because I dig the special effects and the world building that takes place. Unlike a lot of other people, I tend to not really. Everything is so complex inside the creation of a movie that I don't think that one person's poor take, bad take, should ruin the entirety of the world building enterprise. But at any rate, without getting into that side of things, it says here the third Fantastic Beasts earned $20.1 million on Friday and Thursday night previews from 4,753 North American locations, which marks the lowest opening day figure for a Potter adjacent film. Industry analysts projected a 3-day opening in the neighborhood of 40 million, with some opportunity for upside, according to this. Well, it says Secrets of Dumbledore carries a hefty $200 million production budget, ballooned by COVID-related delays and safety costs. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. The first 2016 entry drew a domestic opening of 74 million, and the sequel 62 million. Sorry, I had to cough there. Anyway, plenty of competition, but I think that people are more interested in owning the film and watching it in the comfort of their home, especially during these pandemic days. I won't really hold my breath about it being knocking it out of the park, but let's give it a chance, y'all. The next article is in the Mobile Channel. Researchers decode pigs' well-being through oinks and grunts. I thought that was really interesting. European researchers have developed a way of decoding the feelings of pigs through their grunts, oinks, and squeals in a project aimed at improving animal welfare. We'll click the link and it'll take us over to phys.org and an article written by Camille Bass-Woolert. Biologists studied over 7,000 recordings from 411 pigs, from the brief squeaks of satisfaction at feeding time to the desperate cries at slaughter, before classifying them into 19 different categories. We show that it's possible, basically, to figure out the emotions of the pigs according to their vocalizations. And this is one of those moments where you say, am I one of the baddies? That's not from the article. It's just when you hear about the ability to translate and go from that is an animal making random whatever sounds to, hey, they're saying, hey, I'm happy to see you, and now they're saying, oh my god, what's happening to me? It kind of makes you want to just go vegetarian until you realize that there's research out there that says that plants feel pain and respond to trauma in a way that is symbolic of communication. We just don't understand it. Same with the animals. Well, we are animals too. Where do you go from here? The next article is over in Breaking Prose. Supper versus dinner. What's the difference? This is part of the a series within the something that I want to do, which is to talk about the etymology, the semiotics of it, the why things have meaning the way they have meaning, and the origin of them, their context, not just the etymology, but more deeper meaning to why things are what they are. along with it aligning to writing. So I have these big ideas. I just can't do it all alone, it seems. And I'm not getting much interest in people hosting or co-hosting. So I'll take it all in and analyze it and see what comes out on the other side. But this here, it says supper and dinner both usually refer to an evening meal. However, there are some differences in what the terms mean and how they are used. So you can click this link. It'll take us over to prowritingaid.com. Again, great site if you're an aspiring writer or interested in writing in general. This article is written by Allison Bressmer, and it goes into why you would choose dinner versus supper, if there's a difference. Dinner is a heavy, full meal that can be eaten either at home or out at a restaurant, but supper is lighter and an informal meal eaten at home, and it usually complements a large meal consumed earlier in the day. But this article goes into a much greater depth, so I don't read the entire article here on the stream, so I encourage you to go over to it. You might be asking yourself, well, why would I even want to listen to this? And my only reply is, you don't know what you don't know. And unless somebody says, hey, check this out, you may never even have heard about the difference between dinner and supper, let alone a deeper dive, which hopefully these articles pique your curiosity and you go and check them out by clicking on the show notes. So I'm going to continue on. The next article is Ban the Bezel. This is the Hublot that lets me rebel against high horology. Let's see. I'm just going to click this link because I've got a lot of other links, but I'm just going to continue on. So if you go over to Hodinkee from that link that's in the show notes, Hodinkee has this great, they have various sections, but one of them is, many of them are talking about watches. Sometimes they talk about cars. This here is a kind of like a discussion about their experience with watches and something happening in their life. And so this is one of those articles, kind of like letter to the editor kind of thing. But it says the one rule is there are no rules. This article is written by Cole Pennington. And it says here, in early high school, I got caught lighting fireworks off on school grounds. This was during the era of zero tolerance policies in the early 2000s, and the administration didn't take kindly to my little stunt, and neither did the local police. Well, zero tolerance has only gotten worse. And so they have a bunch of pictures, and they give greater context to the story, and they highlight the watch that this person is wearing while they're telling this story. It says it's a plastic encased Hublot Classic Fusion with a quartz movement inside that says not for sale on the dial. It's given out to Hublot owners when they bring in their watch for servicing, kind of like a loaner car. It isn't a model you can buy, and you have to turn it back in when your watch comes back from servicing. While I don't own a Hublot, I almost want to, just so I can get it serviced and get to wear this watch. And the author says, I asked Hublot to borrow this one to wear around after seeing it a few years ago and thinking it was outrageously cool. So that's what this article is all about. Not just the watch, but the experience of this particular person with this watch, and thought that it was cool. So go and check it out. It's over at Hodinkee, and again, you can follow the link in the show notes. The next article is, and I think I'm going to have to rush a little bit. The next article is over in Stock Marketeers. The end of one-chip wonders, why NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD's valuations have experienced massive upheaval. It wasn't that long ago that Intel Corporation was the unquestioned king of U.S. chip makers and the largest semiconductor company by market capitalization. But it's also not long since most computing was done with a PC. Well, this is all quite a shakeup to many uh, arguably one-hit wonder manufacturers. So NVIDIA is carving out a massive niche for computing around GPU tech, same with AMD. But AMD makes CPUs and GPUs. Intel is pretty broad spectrum, but most known for its CPUs. But there are others out there. So Qualcomm uses their own manufacturing processes for various types of chips, focusing on communication type chips like Wi-Fi and cellular. Broadcom is out there for networking, etc. TSMC is out there. They have a picture of this on the MarketWatch article that I'm discussing right now. So this article was first published April 12th, and then updated periodically with the last one today, April 16th. And again, it says the end of one-chip wonders, why NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD's valuations have experienced massive upheaval. And let's see, it says, since then, a host of changes have occurred in how people interact with technology, and other companies have specialized in taking advantage of those changes, causing Intel to fall behind. While the company was worth as much as its rivals AMD and NVIDIA combined 5 years ago, NVIDIA is now worth as much as the other two combined, a massive sea change in semiconductor valuations that mirrors the change in the industry itself. So they talk about Qualcomm. BlackBerry basically imploded, taking Qualcomm with it. Apple is manufacturing itself based on chip technology that it now has a permanent license for and doesn't need anybody else. And its particular designs are blowing the shoes off of everybody else. And we'll see if that continues. I wish that they wouldn't have done with the Mac Studio what they did in terms of M.2 technology. They moved the controller off of the chip. So their M.2 deployment is proprietary, and you can't just throw another M.2 in there and expand its capabilities. I'm sure there's some rationale for that that's beyond my pay grade, but maybe if I look into it, I'll find out why. So there's a whole bunch of additional competition, and there's a lot of companies that we don't even hear about unless you're in the sector. But there's a tracker here called PHLX, Semiconductor Index, or SOX, that lists 20 companies that it tracks. So you can go and check it out by following the link. Again, I'll try not to say that every time. We'll see how far I get. The next article is Texas Governor Greg Abbott's truck inspection policy created a logjam at the border that resulted in $240 million of spoiled produce. Basically, the Texas governor's decision to ramp up inspections of commercial trucks at the border created a logjam that was so long and so slow that food spoiled. So what the objective was, well, all it did was ruin commerce. So I'm sure people will find a different way of getting that food delivered on time, and we'll see what happens from it. But this is a Business Insider article written by Sarah Al-Arshani. And yeah, there's a lot of isolationist and protection. To me, it seems downright xenophobic. If you can't if you can't put in mechanisms that allow you to be efficient where things aren't spoiling on the road because it's taking too long to do inspections, then you need to find another solution. Because you can't create a bigger problem because of a problem that's perceived. If there is a bigger problem, maybe there's different ways of going around it, about solving it. But follow the link, you'll read more about it. The next article is over in Mobile. How a lone tenant is holding up a $70 million condo deal. It says here, Najat Azu has refused to leave his apartment on the Upper West Side, delaying a plan for condominiums. A pandemic remedy for renters could help him prolong that standoff. Now, this is an article in the New York Times, written by Stefanos Chen, and it says here how a lone tenant is holding up a $70 million condo deal, and Najat Azu has refused to leave his apartment on the Upper West Side, delaying a plan for condominiums. A pandemic solution might be there. And let's see here. It's the last tenant in the way of transforming his building into new luxury condominiums at 215 West 84th Street. I'm not quite sure where he is sitting. Looks like a hallway, but it looks like it looks more like an office. I mean, it even has an extension cord in the hallway. And it looks like barriers too. Weird. Pardon me. So when a developer, the Naftali Group, bought the Manhattan building for $70 million last June and told tenants that they had to move, Mr. Azu made plans to stay. You could not be swayed with a buyout offer of $30,000, an eviction notice, or even a $25 million lawsuit that Naftali recently filed against him. Let's see here. In April, the new landlord placed an industrial air filter outside Mr. Ozu's door, and the blower has been droning nonstop, driving him and his 13-year-old boxer up the wall. Still, he won't move. It's two things. He has the right to be there, and he has no place to go. Well, I mean, no, you don't. I mean, I understand you may not have a place to go, but you don't have the right to be there if you've been evicted because the building is being either destroyed or renovated or whatever. So I'm curious what the law actually says. It says here in the group says that Mr. Ozu is angling for a 7-figure payout and has put its multi-million-dollar investment in limbo, setting off a landlord-tenant stalemate. That is the stuff of legend in New York City real estate. A renter protection enacted to prevent evictions during the crisis could help drag out the standoff for years. So if that's what it is, then I understand that. Under normal circumstances, Mr. Ozu, who's 52, might have already been evicted from the building. His apartment is not rent stabilized, and like many of his neighbors, he was on a month-to-month lease that the landlord was not obligated to renew. Right. So this is all about the pandemic actually resolving this. So as soon as the pandemic and the controls for the pandemic end, this will be resolved as well. But obviously, this is a time-consuming issue. Yeah, interesting. This is something that will probably end up in law school if it gets any bigger, I'd say. So I've got three or four more articles. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. I tried Be Real. This is an author saying this, not me. This is the title of the article. I tried Be Real, the quote-unquote anti-social media app that gives users 2 minutes a day to post candid and unfiltered photos, and discovered I liked it more than Instagram. And I caught this because of the turn of phrase that it's an anti-social media app. This article is over at businessinsider.com, written by Hannah Toey. And it's a mobile app, so they have a bunch of pictures from their website, it's interesting. It's an anti-social media app, but it relies on social media to drive traffic to it. And the people have to be social enough to do something for 2 minutes. And the app literally says 2 minutes left to capture a B reel and see what your friends are up to. I don't know. I always say that people like watching a train wreck. Maybe that's what this is, and people like that 2-minute train wreck. Quote from the article: when I asked my friends why they post daily photos on BeReal, a new social media app that's become increasingly popular among the college crowd, one replied simply, "It's fun." Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it is, if it's fun, then people will do it. That's pretty much most of social media, until it rises to the level where you are compelled to talk about something more than fun, and then it goes back to everybody likes drama. I was actually watching a stream today where it was nothing about drama within the social politics sector that was talking about drama. I mean, it was literally the people that were caught up in the drama talking about the drama, instead of talking about the issues at hand. And it's one of the things that it hasn't presented itself to me yet. Obviously, I'm streaming to a party of 1 or 2 or 3. Sometimes I get raided, but you know, that counter right there hasn't gone up in a few days. So I'm not really being burdened by social drama. And at the same time, I don't necessarily understand why it even exists. Somebody can call out that I don't know what I'm doing, or they don't like my take on something, or whatever it might be. I've had people come in and say something about my age, and I'm sitting there going, at some point you're going to be there too. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I don't know if you're enjoying what you're doing when you're calling me out about something. I'm not quite sure what you get out of it. But the stream that I was watching was actually a composite stream of, I think it was 9 people total, all talking about the same sector of people arguing about the social drama. So my point is, that's exactly what this is. People like that little 2-minute exclusive, and then they're done. But they're going to go somewhere else. You know, they're going to use this for 2 minutes and look at people's videos. And then they're going to go over to Instagram or TikTok. But people like that little snippet. It's easily consumable. If you are good at it, then people will really engage in watching. Let's see where it goes. I'm not sure how be real it is, though. The next article is over on the Hatch Ideas channel. U.S. plan to upgrade its nuclear weapons facilities in the U.K. quietly. Slipped into DoD military documents, says defense expert. It says a fallout shelter sign hangs on a building in East 9th Street in New York. And that's the caption for the picture that we're about to see when we go over to businessinsider.com. This article is written by Bethany Dawson. And it says here, the ability to store nuclear weapons in the UK is to be upgraded with new money for military infrastructure, according to some U.S. defense documents. Biden's 2023 Department of Defense budget request to NATO shows that the military alliance has added the UK to a list of countries receiving $384 million to invest in storing special weapons, and those special weapons are probably nuclear. Other countries receiving this funding are Belgium, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Turkey, where the U.S. stores an estimated 150 American B-61 nuclear gravity bombs, according to the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. Yeah, there's a lot of talk now with Russia invading Ukraine about nuclear bombs, nuclear weapons, nuclear war. Let's just back away from even bringing that to the table. It's bad enough that a country was idling and was suddenly invaded twice. So Crimea first, and now Ukraine. So let's continue on. The next article is in the Mobile channel, and it's taxpayers shoulder cost for $1.4 billion stadium. Buffalo Bills fans cheer. Critics have savaged the deal, which would use $850 million in state and local funds, but many in the city saying keeping the Bills in Buffalo is good for civic pride. Yeah, how many of these people are arguing about taxpayer misallocation of funds and so many other social programs, yet keeping a stadium is more important, while teachers are barely paid and crime rates are through the roof. Lack of opportunity for the very people. This is ridiculous, you know, and it's a private organization. So make the private organizations fund this. If they want to make this happen, then make it happen privately. You know, I mean, that's all I can say. Just like the Buffalo Bills themselves, who famously lost 4 straight Super Bowls, there is no question that the team's new $1.4 billion stadium proposal has its doubters. The stadium, to be built across the street from the Bills' current home in this Buffalo suburb, is expected to receive the most generous outlay of public funds for a pro football facility ever. An extension of a decades-long trend in which state and local governments pay big money to keep or lure for-profit and privately held sports franchises. So it's going to generate taxable income. I understand it. I get it. I know what the mechanism here is. But that wealth is going to a very select few. And it isn't going to the public. The roads leading to this stadium are still going to be crap. Education, not just in this area, but anywhere in the state that's losing hundreds of millions of dollars, is going to suffer. You cannot build a stadium in a vacuum. It's going to impact other things. And the longevity of this is not the same, is not on par with the longevity of keeping infrastructure safe. Bridges collapsing, I'd rather have the bridges repaired. Economic inducements for employees, companies to hire people out of 2-year colleges, high school, 4-year colleges for internships, etc., that should be encouraged to a greater degree than a private organization getting almost $1.5 billion for a stadium. Let them dip into their pockets and fund this themselves. You know, you get sick and you have to go and strike up a Indiegogo fund account, or if you're told that if you can't afford your insurance bill, your medical bill, then you got to go and ask somebody nicely. Yet this private public meeting is going to fund a stadium worth $1.5 billion. I don't think that would be right. That's my take, though. But I'm going to continue on. The next article is over on the Hatch Ideas channel. The U.S. military is partnering with a startup to build 3D printed barracks in Texas. I love this technology. I love the idea of it being used everywhere so that it gets more efficient and less expensive and more pervasive in building. We'll click the link here and we'll go over to businessinsider.com. And this article is written by Brittany Chang and shows a picture of a 3D printer. I didn't catch the name in the snippet, so forgive me. But I love these types of 3D printers. There are different types of cement printers, but in this particular brand is designed so that it does this little zigzag between two solid walls. And in that you can actually do reinforcement and run pipes and whatnot. But what I love about this is those walls are so thick that you could crank up your music, or I can do whatever I want in there. I can play drums and nobody's going to hear it. I just love thick cement walls. Depending on the resources, they could actually make this as a low ecosystem impacting solution as well. Because cement is notorious for off-gassing. It's not very beneficial to the environment. But not having to cut up trees for wood to build walls that when a strong wind comes tears the roof off and the walls just fall over is so much more beneficial to the health and welfare of the occupants than just, the cement off-gassing. And that can be mitigated with the chemistry of the mix to some degree. So we'll scroll down a little bit. This happens to be military use, but if it's Icon, it is Icon. So the U.S. military is partnering with home construction tech startup Icon to construct the U.S.'s largest 3D printed buildings, the agency announced on April 5th. So I hope that Icon benefits from this investment, much like Tesla benefited, or I should say SpaceX benefited from the NASA contract. I want 3D printing of buildings to be much more pervasive than it currently is. Let's see if they have these are all renders. So I'm not really a big fan of renders. They're never exactly how it really is, but Icon uses its large in-house Vulcan printing system and high-strength concrete known as lavacrete to create its construction projects. This is the company that I'm looking at to build my next house, the one that I want as my final house. I want it to be a 3D printed house using an Icon printer, and I hope it gets done. We'll see. But this will be interesting. All you have to do is put the rig down, throw out the commands, it'll start printing. You have to keep it fed. Fewer people are involved, and it can be done faster. And all the building crew has to do is make sure that certain things are in place so that when it all hardens, they can go to the next floor, etc., etc., etc. It's all pretty amazing technology. So, okay. Well, it is now midnight where I am, and I am going to bring us back to the very front page, where when we click on that front page, it should just refresh, and you have a whole new set of articles that have been acquired over the last hour since I last refreshed it. So I refresh it when I start my show, and I refresh it at the end, and we get just page after page after page, and now we're up to about 250,000 articles. I have been purging certain articles over the last few days, losing probably ultimately we'll lose about 150 pages worth of miscategorized articles from the past. Most stuff is being categorized properly now, but Don't worry, there's no discussions or anything that are being lost. Largely because there's no real discussion taking place on ohmTown. People click on the links and follow the articles and aren't really talking. That said, I am out of here and I will see you tomorrow. Currently, I'm going to be doing the shows at 11 p.m., but I am seriously thinking about moving it to noon or 11 a.m. 11 a.m. to noon, maybe somewhere between 11 and ending at 1, somewhere in there. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Bye bye.